Hello. I'm here today. It's Friday, the 29th of July here in New Zealand, and I thought about coming in online and talking about the moon. Since today is a no moon day, I call it no moon day. Some people call it new moon day or new moon. I was born in a new moon, so I'm a no moon baby, which means there was no moon in the sky, and so other objects of light or spheres of light or light portals or cosmic bodies or planets, however you want to call them, were visible. Were more visible, I will say. Their light was there was no distractions, let's put it that way. And I've talked about the moon program before, a few years ago when it was revealed to me particularly, and then I delved into it a little bit. I tend to find balance stories. You see, we grow up with stories, right? Everything that we believe comes from a story. Stories we were told. We started with a question, maybe to our parents or to someone that was close to us, and we started asking, what is that? And what is that? And what is that? And why? What is this? And what is this for? And why? And stories started to come up. Stories of who we are, stories of creation, stories of who we trust, who we don't. Stories start to become part of our fabric. And we learned based on these stories. And when we were children, we didn't question these stories. We took them as they came because they were coming from our elders, our family, our teachers. And there was a given. It was a given that these people know what they're talking about. But you see, they also knew or learned about the world through stories of their elders, their teachers. And yes, there was certain aspects of the story perhaps were questioned, perhaps in times through maturity and adulthood, and the poignant times in life, which is teenage. We all started asking the questions deeper. Is this true? Does this make sense to me? Does it work for me? And there goes the quest of the human soul as to search for truth. And the quest for truth is a tricky one because we can really get very over intellectual around what's true, what isn't, what's the ultimate true, universal truths. Is there one single source of truth? Is there one single truth? Is there many fractals of the truth? Do we get to learn the whole picture? And so this is my story and how I absorb the world. Yes, I was always questioning. I was always asking. And even when I was told the stories, I kept going, but why, but why, but why? And my father will tell you that story, that I would get into a point where I would really go like, I would try to really get to the bottom of everything, and found myself inevitably in what I see now, the void. The void as there's nothing. And yet it's everything, because it's the soil of creation itself. It's my womb. So coming to that space where all stories collide or convey or land or arrive to, it's a great place to be, because then I get to choose. I get to choose which seeds from all the stories I've learned get planted in my womb, in my soil, in my heart. And I will choose those who have grown within me and have allowed me to become me. And it doesn't matter whether those stories, some of them were complete true, half-truths, deceptions maybe. I don't know, I grew in a Catholic, not household, but country. And so I really wanna come up and explain this in the most clear way I possibly can. With clarity, with that intention, I'm gonna delve into what the moon program is. So take it as a story. It's another story. We've been told stories about the moon, and some of us have connected to these stories deeply, and those stories have led us to an inner journey of self-discovery and awareness and connection to our divinity. And that is fantastic, but because that story in itself allowed you to get to you. Ultimately, that's the journey. Some didn't connect to those stories and search for other stories. Or new stories were woven, and some of us are utilizing these new threads. That doesn't mean all the other threads are wrong, all the other stories are bad. We tend to overanalyze everything and think, oh, this is the new, the old must be bad or done with, or we should not use it. No, everything is part of it. So at some point there were stories that were placed on top of stories, on top of stories, on top of stories. And yet some stories, maybe their intention and purpose was to deceive, was to create a distraction, was to create an illusion, so that people would not ultimately connect to themselves. And see, the issue here is not about what story is true or what story is not true. It's about how you connect to the story, and ultimately if that story leads you back to yourself. That is the key. Leads you back to your own divinity. Because if we keep placing divinities, deities, reverence outside of us, then that's a distraction. That is the illusion. That is what we need to break through. Yeah? It's taking it off. This veil of illusion, what we call the Maya. And so with the moon, this is part 1, because I don't want to make a very long moon video. But I'll do it in installments, in little bits. So a lot of people say, well then, if the moon, if the story of the moon it's different, or it's not true, or we're challenging it, or what does it mean, that the moon wasn't there before, or was placed at some point in history. What does that mean? What are we connecting with when we're connecting to the moon? Are we connecting to a hollow moon, a program? Are we connecting to a loop? Are we connecting to reptilian energy? There's all this. What are we connecting to? Are we giving our power out, emotional lush into the moon? Are we becoming lunatic, hypnotized by the moon? And so I'm gonna go through all of these elements. What's behind the moon? What are we truly revering? What's the other story I haven't heard? And that's the story I'm going to tell you. I'm not saying that the moon is bad, that the moon doesn't exist. I'm not going into that. Although there's many theories about, there's all these stories. Stories are stories. And there's a saying in my culture where the river flows, the water sounds. So there's always some truth in everything, and you need to be able to pick it and do your own discovery. Find what rings true to you, what takes you back into you. That's the key. So I'm going to come close to home, because when it comes to the moon, and why is everybody just connects to the full moon, and actually it's a beautiful thing to see. I'm not saying not. We all get mesmerized by the moon when it rises in full bloom. It's like, wow, right? But what is the other story? And so I have to come to my home, Mexico, and there's the story of Tonatzin as the universal mother. Aztecs, Mixtecas were revering Tonatzin. Tonan, mother. Tzin, small. Tonantzin. It's a loving way of calling my mother, my dear mother. So Tonatzin Coatlique was the mother, the universal mother who appeared and gave birth to Huitzilopochtli, and gave birth to Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, which has been the timelines, and there's the work of Jose Argüelles, who actually brought forth the Mayan calendar, or the Mayan system, or the Tammuz art, the noosphere, talks about Quetzalcoatl and the similarities with Yeshua, Jesus, as the same avatar coming into earth to teach peace and love and the incredible, powerful beings that we are, right? But that's another story. So Tonantzin was a deity that was also brought forth the seed of her son, who came to change the world. So she also conceived by the spirit, by a feathered ball of fire that came through the sky, and she was the mother of serpents, the mother of energy, Kundalini, right? Life force. And she was revered. So when the Spaniards arrived and came with their own story of creation, their own story and their own deities, they really wanted to impose their stories into the story that was already there about creation, and they pretty much succeeded. What's very interesting is that Tonantzin was revered on the 12th of December, which is a particular alignment. And so on that day, this new story came. On this same place where Tonantzin would appear to be revered on the 12th of December, Juan Diego, a young boy, saw an appearance of a beautiful virgin, appeared to him and imprinted her image on a cloth that he was wearing. And that's where the Mary of the Mexicans, Guadalupe, came to be. They're the same deity, you see. Whether that story came through as a new thread, whether it's real, whether it's made up, the idea was to become a new story, so that the indigenous of Mexico would stop revering this and start revering this. The interesting thing is that they are both revered. You see, the indigenous people understood what was going on. And it doesn't mean they didn't stop revering this. They started revering both. They understood that they had to weave both stories at some level. Of course, there's a more superficial layer of the Catholic faith completely diminishing this, saying this is wrong, this is the new, you only revere this. But the truth is that behind this is this. And to this day, thousands and thousands, millions of people from all over the country of Mexico go to the Cerro de Tepeyac every 12th of December to revere Tonantzin and Guadalupe. Whether they know it or not, it doesn't matter. They go and revere the Universal Mother. They don't go to their local churches where there is a picture of Mother of Guadalupe or the Virgin Mary. They go to the Cerro because also they understand that's a place of power, where this universal life force of the Mother is there. So they connect to that. So even if we strip the layer of the stories of the Guadalupe or the Tonantzin, they are connecting to the place of power where that deity made itself present. And so what are they connecting to? The energy of the Mother that they need. It's like drinking from a fountain. They're looking for that because it reminds them who they are. And that is the key story here. And this is what I just want to convey today. We're going to go into the story of the moon in the next video. But I hope you understand. I hope I made myself. I made sense with the story of the Tonantzin and the Guadalupe to convey what I'm about to talk about soon or in my next video, because there is all these stories and there's more stories to come, and I'm sure there's so many layers within the story, and ultimately we are part of that story, that thread. Our life is a story, and how we tell our life, it's our own version, right? Based on our own experience. Is that the truth? Is that a fact? What's real and what isn't of my experience as me? And when I tell you my story, what I go through, what I feel through, it's always going to be through my filter. When I tell stories to my children about what I believe life is and creation is and energy is and awareness is and spiritual connection is, it's my story. Yet, I always plant the seed of what's your story and how can you journey back to yourself, because we all hold a piece of the story. We are all fractals, and that's of the grandest story, right? At least from my perspective. So I'll leave you with that, and I'll post about the moon in this new moon day or no moon day.